Thank you. All right. So we have 5 local bills. All of them have letters and all of them have positive votes. Not always unanimous, but mostly we can get Alistair to tell us if they're not for education. And so welcome. I guess I should introduce this. This is the meeting of the Education Subcommittee of Ways and Means. Today is the 6th of March and it is 11:15-ish. And so we're going to take up 5 local bills first, and then we're going to talk about some statewide bills. The first local bill is House Bill 108. This is a Baltimore County Board of Education bill. This deals with compensation for the members and for the scholarship level for the $17,7,500. This bill has been approved by the state government, the county government, because it is a mandate, but they're perfectly comfortable with it. We have a couple of amendments. The main one is that the bill was written so that you cannot get a raise during your term. We can't do that for people. We cannot raise a board member's stipend or salary during a term. So it would be, no matter when we made the bill effective, the raise wouldn't be effective until the end of 2026. However, the student members elected annually, so we're going to specify that their new stipend doesn't begin also. Otherwise, a student member would get a scholarship that is effectively larger than the board member's salary. So we'll be fixing that date. And then the other amendment is always for Baltimore County, that we amend it to Baltimore County as a sponsor. Alistair, is there anything else amended to it?
That's okay. It.
Delegate Hornberger, question.
Well, thank you. You had cut out. I don't know if it was on your end or my end, but
I'm sure it was me. Why not?
Two questions. So this is specific to Baltimore County, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And then the funds that are going, are they coming from county government or state government?
County government pays the salaries of the Board of Ed members.
Okay, so all the increases will be incurred by the county.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I didn't hear that, but thank you.
I don't think I said it. It was a good question. Delegate Fair.
Just to clarify, there was an amendment that to strike 2024 and substitute 2026. Is that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I must have frozen up for a second. Yes, because that would have allowed the student to get their scholarship, which would exceed they're currently making about $7,500. The student's scholarship would exceed their actual payment because they can be, since they're new, they could get their salary quicker. We cannot raise the salary of the board members right now because that's outside the Constitution. So we're going to push back the student ones to 2026 so they get it at the same time that the new board members would.
Understood. Thank you. With that, oh, sorry, Delegate. My apologies.
No, good. Does that answer your question though? Delegate Miller. Nope. Hand up, hand down.
Oh, it's up. It's up. Sorry, I just put it down.
Go.
I just couldn't reach me. Microphone. No benefits or anything like that. Strictly a scholarship.
It's strictly a scholarship to the student and strictly a stipend or pay for the board members.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have an amendment. I will, because it's a local bill and it's been approved, with your permission, I will allow for a motion on the bill as amended if somebody would like to do that, unless you have a problem with the amendments.
I would move approval on the bill as amended.
With the amendments. Okay. And I have a second from Delegate Wu. Thank you. All in favor of the bill with the amendments, raise your hands, please. Thank you very much. Baltimore County thanks you as well. House Bill 151 is a Charles County bill. This is also Board of Education. This has to do with vacancy procedures, how they replace them. Mostly it has to do with the amount of time they have to replace them. And it also has to do with the availability of the recordings of the interview process. Alistair, since I'm a little more better versed on Baltimore County bills, I'll let you kind of tie up the knot there for me on that one.
Yep, that's right. As introduced, there's an amendment to this bill that the delegation passed, but as introduced, it requires that vacancies be filled within 60 days and that the board members have to fill a vacancy on the Charles County Board of Education be live streamed and kept in accordance with the Open Meetings Act.
For people to see if they want to. But now the amendment moves it from 60 to 90 days. Is that correct?
It does that, and it also allows the board to not fill a vacancy if they choose, if the vacancy comes up in an election year, just to wait till the election comes up.
Okay, so those are all the amendments. Are there any questions on any of those amendments? If no one objects, I would like to have a motion on the bill with the amendments, please.
I move approval on the bill as amended.
Okay, do I have a second? Somebody say it. Thank you, April. All in favor of House Bill 151 with the amendments as suggested, raise your hands, please. Good, we're clearing the deck here. Chow, I didn't see your hand. You look like you're distracted. That's great. It happens. They are local bills after all. Next bill is House Bill 495. We're back to Baltimore County. This is a bill. Baltimore County has a board that is hybrid, and this is about the nomination committee and what they do. And so what happens is 4 of the members are appointed, but they're nominated by a nominating committee from a group of applicants. And then they send twice as many names to the governor as there were openings, and the governor chooses. This bill seeks to improve some of the transparency there. It originally said that we were going to record all the interviews and make them publicly available. Actually, on advice, we amended that because it probably violated certain personnel rules that were available. And so that's not going to happen. What needs to happen, and what has not been happening, and this bill will say it, is the nomination committee needs to publish the names of the people who are applying. And then once they choose, ostensibly for the 4 positions, there are 8 people, they need to publish the names of the 8 people they sent to the governor. Then the governor will pick from among them. So it's a little more transparency about the names as they go forward here. And I think that's it, Alistair. Was there anything else to the bill and the amendments? Okay,
That's
covered it. Okay. Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, just a quick question. So someone applies and they don't get any votes, or in other words, no one selects them. Does their
Right.
name still have to go to the governor?
No. What they'll do is, let's say 15 people apply for the 4 positions. The appointment board, it's 19 people from all sorts of representative groups across the county, will pick 8 people and send those 8 names to the governor, and the governor will pick 4 from among them to be the board members.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So the amendment takes out the hyper transparency of the interview process being recorded and available for the public, but it does make public the names at each stage along the way. And again, it's a local bill, and the amendments have been approved by, I think this was unanimous by Baltimore County delegation, which doesn't always happen. We have a bipartisan delegation. So I'll take a motion on the bill with the amendments.
Move approval with amendments.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Bill's been properly moved and seconded with the amendments. All in favor, please raise your hands. And thank you. Okay, there's Joe Vogel. Good. We're still looking for, if you could text them, the 2 subcommittee chairs.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. All right, next one is Montgomery County local. Am I out of order? No, I got my numbers. No, yeah, 995, 998. Okay, sorry. Montgomery County. I'm a math teacher and I couldn't get my numbers in correct order there. It's a little embarrassing. Montgomery County, this is vacancy procedures. This has to do with replacing someone. I'm gonna say it quickly. The elevator version, Alistair may need to clean up what I say a little bit. If a vacancy occurs more than 55 days before the filing deadline for running, so ostensibly if the filing deadline's in the middle of February, this would be somewhere in December. If it occurs before that, then there needs to be a special election to elect someone to that position. If it's inside of that 55-day limit, they can either appoint someone or, I think, Alistair, leave the position open.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's creating, this is something a lot of people are interested in when someone resigns, that we have an election. Does it require a special election outside of the norm? No, it would be
No.
during that election cycle. People could file and run for that position then.
That's right. And then there's also procedures for the largest vote getter. If there's multiple issues, the largest vote getter will be the one who serves the longest, and the second.
So
will
this is
serve the
essentially for
vacancy.
somebody who resigns in time for this to occur in a presidential election year. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I think that's when the Montgomery County Board.
The one I had the least time to read, I'm sorry. Delegate Hornberger.
Just because I went through this in my own county, is it
Okay.
the same process for if someone dies?
I think a resignation and a death are the same thing if the seat is vacated for any reason. And I think some counties, like, I don't know if Montgomery County has it, Baltimore County has a rule that if you don't live in the district, you have to resign. If you move out, you can't stay in. It's not like us, where if we move, we can stay. So
Second
Yeah.
question, declining of the nomination.
I don't know. That's a good question. Alistair?
So So if someone's appointed and they decline to serve by the board, if you're in the circumstance where it's not 55 days before,
Yeah.
I think they would just then have to appoint someone else.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
just because we ran into this with our central committee, and it can get really weird if.
Yeah.
It's not, there's nothing specific under the current law or in this bill on that topic, but I think they will just appoint people until they fill it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Delegate Wu.
Yeah, this is a delegation bill, right?
Yes, this is Montgomery County.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. That's it. All right. I'm going to try again. This one's a little bit more complicated, but is anybody uncomfortable with moving the bill with the amendments? I don't see anybody saying they are, so I take a motion on the bill with the amendments as suggested by the delegation.
Move the bill.
Chair,
Thank you.
Second.
I heard it, at least two. And so all in favor of the bill as amended, with the amendments, raise your hands, please. At all.
Sorry,
Yeah.
this one's clean. There's no amendments. It's
Oh.
as introduced.
Oh, there were no amendments. I'm sorry. I thought the amendments, I thought that we moved it back, but we didn't. That's a different one. That's the 90 to 60 days. Sorry. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, last local bill is Washington County Board of Education. This is Washington County creating a residency requirement. They have no current residency requirement for serving on the board in Washington County. So I thought I might run in the next election until this gets passed. And so in this case, you have to live in Washington County for how long, Alistair?
6 months, sir.
And you have to be a resident of the state for how long?
12 months.
Is it prior to the election or prior to filing?
It's prior to taking office.
Okay, there you go. So even that's even farther out. All right.
Move the
and
bill
then-
because I don't want the chair to leave us.
No, I can double. I can double it. I can't hold two offices, can I? It's true. It's very good. Thank you, Joe. That's very sweet of you. Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, this is absurd. Are there other counties that have this deficiency?
That have the deficiency, I'm not sure. Most counties have a residency requirement. I'm not sure if there might be one or two that don't still, but
yeah, I mean, not
almost
to-
all do.
You're saying it's
Not
absurd
to-
because all counties should have something like this. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I don't want to hold up this local bill, but I mean, perhaps this should be a statewide bill. I mean, this
Yeah.
is just absurd.
That's not, yeah, I agree. I was shocked when I said to Alistair, what are the requirements right now? And he said, they don't have any.
I would say that the residency requirement is like how long it is and how exactly it works is up to each delegation to set. So setting a statewide bill might introduce some difficulties there, but
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so we're up to this bill has no amendments. It's clean as it is, but wait a minute. I see Delegate Wu has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So we have like residency requirement at the same time, we have how many months they need to live in that district, right?
In the jurisdiction, yes.
Yeah. So one question is about, I'm thinking about for the state delegation, when we have or county election, they have restrictions about the council district or school district or delegation district. So what happens during that transition period?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like,
Did you get it, Alistair?
I think so. So you're saying, so I think when this as this law will go into effect, people who are currently on the board will probably continue to serve. I would hope that I don't know about the actual members of the Washington County Board of Education. I hope they're mostly residents of Washington County. I think this is probably a prospective thing that in the future, when people decide to run for County Board of Education,
So
they
they're countywide election, is that right? Or countywide election?
I believe so.
Yeah, yes, they are.
No, I think they're appointed in Washington County, I think. Oh
But
no,
they're
I'm sorry.
they-
It's an election. You're right.
And
I
they're
apologize.
at large.
They serve countywide is the point, at large, yes.
At
There's
large,
not districts. Yeah.
So, okay, I think that if there's a by district one, because like county always has this kind of restriction. If like for Howard County, we have restriction a few years ago, and that changed the boundary of the district for school board, right? I'm thinking about that may impact the result. If there's 60 days or something, I feel probably too short. That's my concern.
It's 6 months, isn't it?
Mhm.
Or 6 months, I don't know, like before that.
So Delegate Wu, I appreciate your comments, but this is what we call local courtesy.
Mhm.
The delegation has approved this period of time. And if we did what Delegate Hornberger suggested did statewide, we could argue it out. But actually, this is not precedent setting to set a residency requirement. And I think if they've approved it, if the delegation has approved it, it really wouldn't be to us to tweak it in this case.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Delegate Miller.
Yes, it is saying it takes effect on July 1st of 2024. Do they need an amendment to let current board members stay? Would it I mean, I think that's a good question. It's a fair question.
It is, they're all elected in a presidential election year, so it's basically going to go into, I mean, if someone is not a resident of Washington County currently, they're going to be up for election basically almost immediately after this bill takes effect, I think. So I think
But
in practical terms,
should we move it to the election date, or should we leave it as the first? I just don't want them to be left with some vacancies if the bill takes effect the 1st and people haven't been living there in that certain amount of time. I don't want it to impact it, is all I'm saying. I don't want it to disrupt their board operations. I have no idea. I just don't know who's on there.
Right. In other words, you're suggesting that if we enact this, some people might have to leave the board.
Yeah.
so I think it is 6 months out from December right now, because it goes into effect July 1st and the members serve December 1st.
But they're not
So-
electing. Are they electing board members this year? Or are we?
They
talking
are, yes,
their entire board?
yes.
Okay.
May-
So go ahead, Delegate Fair. You look like you have information.
Yes, thank you. The Washington County Board of Education actually submitted a letter of support for this bill, specifically signed by each of their individual members. So I would assume that inherently implies that they feel comfortable with this language.
And even though she's not a Board of Education person, she's a state superintendent person. I'm going to recognize one of our experts, Mary Pat Fannin, if she has some information for us.
Yes, I just talked to the superintendent and they are all current residents of Washington County.
Okay, so we'll be fine with them. They're okay as long as they don't move out, and it will all fall into place this year. So thank you, Mary Pat. I appreciate that. It's helpful. Means that we don't have to mess around with it. But still, Delegate Hornberger has his very serious face on and his very serious hand up. So go.
So just a follow-on question here. Would this apply to the superintendent as well, or just the school board members?
Just the school board members.
Just the elected members. Yeah.
Okay. And are there counties, or is there any law that mandates the superintendent has to be a resident?
I don't believe so. I know Baltimore County had a superintendent for a lot of years who lived in Howard County. So we don't have anything like that, I don't think.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
an interesting question. Some stuff to think about, huh?
Yeah, I'll follow up with Alistair after.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So no amendments, right, Alistair? Just straight up. Okay. Do I have a motion on the bill for residency in Washington County for board members? I see Delegate Wu raising his hand. I'm going to take that as a motion. And I see a second from Delegate Miller. All in favor of the bill, raise your hands, please. And it carries. All right. That's 5 local bills that we sweep out of the way. They just kind of hang around. We now have 3 bills on the agenda. One of them is House Bill 945, has a sponsor problem, so we're just going to kind of put it aside. It's really troublesome. We don't know what to do with that guy. Actually, it does have a lot of moving parts, and we have been in conversations with several people from several expert groups, including MSEA, MSDE, AIB, the State Board of Education. There's one more. Maybe that's it. I can't think. But we did give them the interlineated versions. They were a little concerned about one part, and we didn't want to bring it without a clear picture of what they want and making sure the language was clear. So we're going to put that aside. I will warn you that we may have another ed sub meeting on Friday after session. I have a meeting right after session. So if you want, I'm going to try to do it about an hour and a half after session ends. So if you want to get in your car and drive home, you can do that because it'll be online. So I don't want to keep you here, but we may do a couple of bills. I'll keep you posted on that. Things are starting to jam up, and I like to keep the deck clear so we have time to talk about stuff. So we're going to hold House Bill 945. The next one is House Bill 1140, a bill that has to do with virtual tutoring and sort of screening people with fingerprinting. Alistair, you want to get in on that one a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an amendment to this bill. The intent behind this bill is that if you're a virtual tutor, you have to undergo a background check just like anyone else who works with kids under the family law article. There's extensive background checks for a lot of groups, including for education purposes, childcare centers, family childcare centers, and so on. So the intent of this bill is to say that if you're a virtual tutoring service and you have a contract and engage with students in the state of Maryland, you also would have to undergo that. There's an additional background check that we require under Maryland law. It's not really a background check. It's sort of an evaluation of people in the past who work with children, who there has to be reaching out to their previous employer to look into how they existed in the past. And as this bill was introduced, it put the virtual tutoring section there instead of in the family law article where it belongs. So the amendment basically fixes that so that it is part of the ordinary criminal background history check.
But generally, it smooths the way for us to do it for people who are, say, in Colorado, but are offering, they don't have to come to a location here in Baltimore County or wherever that, to do this, that it will make it possible for them to do this background check remotely. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Delegate Wu, question.
Thank you. One question about for student tutor. What do they treat them like? If I have a high school student wanted to be a tutor, right? Do they treat the same way as a in-person tutor or adult tutor? Do you have language there to guarantee? I don't think like you do background check for 12-year-old or 10 years old.
Yes, I think that's a fair point. There's a definition for these types of tutors that this applies to. They're called a virtual tutoring service. And they're defined as those who enter into a contract with the County Board of Education to provide live virtual video-based tutoring services to students. So unless a 11-year-old is entering into a contract with the county board, they would not be covered by this bill.
So, okay, so you should really focus on anything contract the school board or the
Correct.
school
That's
system.
right.
It's
Correct,
not
because this is what school boards do. When they have people interact with their students, they vet people
Yeah.
and make sure that they're okay, fingerprint them. And so these become people that are under contract to the school system. And like we said, because they're remote, they were having a harder time. There's lots of opportunities, but there's only like 9 virtual tutors in Baltimore County right now, a very small number. And part of that is because they can't get vetted. They can't find a way to do it. So this is supposed to make that possible in the same standard, but just they can do it remotely. Yes. Okay. But we do have an amendment, right? The amendment is to move this to where it belongs in code. Was there any other substantial amendment? Okay. Since that's a technical amendment, I'm going to try the same thing again. As long as because it doesn't change the thrust of the bill. It just puts it where it belongs. I'm going to go ahead and take a motion on the bill with the amendment. I got 2 hands up in the air. I'll take them both. Thank you. So we have a motion favorable on the bill with the amendment. All in favor of the bill with the amendment, raise your hands, please. Okay. And then that carries. Last bill we're going to take up is House Bill 1219. This is a cardiac plan. What this said is that every school's emergency plan, and I see Lauren Hale's got her light on, and that's good because I asked for her to talk a little bit for a second. So I'll recognize you in a second. The cardiac plan is something that we need. You heard all of the good testimony. One of the things that there's an amendment that was submitted to make the cardiac plan not a standalone plan, but part of the school's general emergency response plan. Okay. And so that makes it not as heavy-handed for schools to do, but it makes it important for them to have it at the same time. And so that's good. We have toyed with another idea, but I'm going to let Laura talk about a small amendment that she feels needs to be placed in this to make it work. And we talked about it offline right before the meeting started. So Laura, you're up.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Delegate Ebersol. And thanks so much, everyone, for your consideration on this bill. One of the things that Delegate Miller very kindly pointed out during the hearing was the word first aid. That was accidentally left out of the definition of trainings that are required. That was put into bill drafting. It's been a bit of an adventure this year with all of that. And so we just ask under the training requirement that we make sure that first aid is included in addition to CPR and AED use. All of those are trainings that really make a difference at the end of the day when we're looking to save a life. And so we wanted to make sure that those two words were not left out in the final version as we stick this into the proper portion of the code. But thank you so much.
Okay. So this is an amendment in spirit, but it won't be hard for Alistair to write, to add the word first aid into that section along with the other things. Delegate Miller, do you have anything you want to add since you asked the very insightful question for that?
Nope, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on that. Let's move on that amendment first because we got a couple to do. So do I have a motion on that amendment to add first aid into the bill?
Move the amendment.
Got a first?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor of the amendment to the bill, please raise your hands. Joe, pay attention. Thank you. Appreciate that. Glad to have you back. So now the other amendment that was discussed, and this is for discussion, was this bill only addresses public schools. It was suggested that we also ask private schools to have this cardiac thing in their plan. It's a little tricky for us to do in terms of code, but you know what? Alistair earns like big bucks. So we're gonna put it to, he does not, by the way. Okay. He's severely underpaid. But for the record, I'd like to know if there are thoughts on asking private schools. These would be only the schools, of course, that accept state money. We don't, the ones that stand alone as their own businesses, we don't try to push them around as much. But schools that are accepting any state money, that we also require that they have a cardiac arrest plan in part of their emergency plan. Do I have any comments or thoughts about that? Yes, Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that the language can be broad because any private school, they probably have a private placement student, right? So from public school, they're accepting public school money. Does that belong to that part?
I agree. I think I was the one who asked the question in committee.
Yeah, that can be a very wide category of school.
I'm along with you on this one. Is that it? Are you good? Is it just commentary? No question?
So you asked a question, right? I'm thinking,
yeah,
if
sure.
we put that amendment there, we'll mandate a lot of private schools.
Right. And I will say that the bill sponsor was ambivalent about this. They said, sure, if you think it's a good idea. They don't feel they impressed, but they said they'd be happy for us to do that. And it's coming sort of from me because if you remember, I asked the question in the committee hearing. Delegate Fair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And forgive me because I was recalling the testimony. And if I remember correctly, one of the instances that one of the parents spoke to was at a private school that the incident occurred.
It was Loyola Blakefield. I remember the story. And it was like, yeah, people have heart attacks there too. And I'm sure many schools are very ramped up, but some would not be. So yeah, so you're supporting also.
I think it's a sensible request of schools. I think that the testimony alone was horrifying to hear, and the idea that we have this at our fingertips is reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, absolutely. Delegate Miller.
Where are the private schools, or do we do any other requirements of private schools as far as the AEDs already, or any of the Narcan, or any of the anaphylactic, any other things that we also require private schools of?
Gosh, who do you think would know the answer to that? Alistair?
Yeah, so typically in this space, I think I can definitely say with anaphylaxis, I think, and some other programs, is we make it optional for the private schools, but set boundaries for if they do adopt an emergency plan that it has to follow certain state guidelines. So that's what's done in the anaphylaxis space. I think for the administration of naloxone, I think it might be a requirement that all public and private schools at least educate kids about drug use and so on. But I would have to look into that for more specificity.
And both those two things require physical things in the building, so we probably weren't quite as heavy-handed about making them have. This is really just them writing a plan into their thing, so I think it's a little less insidious for them in this case too. So that's a good question. It's an excellent question. Thank you. Alistair, I'm not sure we moved on the amendment to there was something else. Shoot, my mind just went blank for a second. We amended. What? Okay, tell me the amendment we did so far.
So you so
Okay.
far just added the word first aid. You haven't yet adopted the sponsor's amendment to make this part of the overall emergency plan.
Right.
So-
That was that was the other amendment. The amendment was to say that this doesn't have to be a standalone plan, but it can be part of the overall plan. Okay, so that's an amendment we're going to take up, and then another amendment we'll take up in spirit. It's not in front of you, but Alistair can do a great job figuring out where this goes. Will be to extend it to private schools that receive state aid or state funding. So we'll take them up separately just to be sure. A motion on the amendment to God, what is wrong with me today? We'll do the amendment to include it in the school's plan. And Delegate Fair, your hands up. Is that a motion or is that asking to speak?
A motion. For,
Okay, motion on the amendment to make it part of the plan and not a standalone. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment to make it part of the general plan and not standalone? Raise your hands, please. That's everyone. Good. Okay, and now the other amendment is the amendment to extend this requirement to private schools that receive state funds. Any comments on the amendment? Do I have a motion on it?
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a second? I could be like a teacher. I can wait all day. I can stand here all day and wait for you.
Second.
Second. All right, I have a second from Delegate Patterson. Thank you so much, Delegate Patterson. And so if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment to add private schools to this bill that receive state funding, raise your hands, please. Okay, good. All of us. All right, so now on the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
We got a favorable motion. Do I have a second from Delegate Miller? Thank you. And if there's no further discussion, I'll take a vote on this bill. All in favor of the favorable motion, please raise your hands. Wow, we're doing great today. All right. And that carries. So we'll Alistair's going to send out, it's hard to read, but if you want to, and you can, the updated version of House Bill 945. I'm going to take 2 minutes here and describe to you what it does so you can read the bill with some knowledge of what we're doing. We are creating a slightly new pathway for teachers to be certified in the state of Maryland. Right now, they have to take a praxis and then they have to do what we call a induction, which means they teach and they do a portfolio and they have to take another test and they have to take another test. The first test, as I said in my testimony, I think has the habit of weeding out people who would otherwise be teachers. My daughter failed it the first time. I know I shouldn't tell that, but I have 2 daughters, so you don't know which one it is. But it's difficult and it does that. So we were looking for other options. Now, in that first stage, rather than passing the praxis, if you get a 3.0 from a university where you're in an education program, or if you have completed 3 years of teaching in a provisional license, or 2, it depends on the law and that's complicated, but 2 or 3 years, then that counts as the first round with good evaluations, by the way, that counts as the first round of showing some pedagogical skill. Then we'll still have an induction program. There are official ones nationally. One's called EdTPA, if you're familiar with it. We're also going to ask counties to develop their own that they can have people work through, so that we don't have to do the EdTPA necessarily. After that, everything remains pretty much the same. You have to pass a content area test. And now they have a test that's starting to ramp up called reading literacy. Our new superintendent likes it, and she's a star of Mississippi. So if she likes it, even though it's another test and I don't love it, we're going to go along with it. Okay. The bill also asks the superintendent and MSTE to seek out other states that have teacher accreditation programs that are as good or better than our own, and then establish a reciprocal relationship with them so that teachers coming from those states can quickly become, maybe the reading literacy test or 1 or 2 extra things, but not taking whole courses over, get certified to teach the state of Maryland. This is an attempt to balance between finding more teachers, but also keeping our quality standards high at the same time. I'm not going to do a big discussion right now. If you've heard something that concerns you, I'll be in committee soon. Feel free to talk to me about it. But I wanted you to have a sense of what it's trying to do when you read through it, because the language is pretty thick in it. So if you're interested, that'll help give you a perspective on what we're trying to do. I see Mary Pat Fannin still here. I don't know if you wanted to toss anything in on what I just said. She's obviously taking care of those two children in the picture there.
No, thank you. I don't have anything to add, and
Okay.
I appreciate the copy.
Yeah, we've involved people like PZAM and MSDE and MSEA and the AIB in constructing some of this. And that's why we had to hold, because some of our amendments, we were getting texts this morning saying not quite what we wanted. So we're trying to smooth it out very good so that everybody feels good. I've held you long enough and had my own little promotional time. I appreciate you tolerating me. I see Delegate Patterson has her hand up.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I have a question. I'm sorry about being late coming on.
It's all right.
House Bill 495, was that voted on or discussed?
Charles County?
No,
Baltimore County.
it
Okay.
was, yes.
Oh, yes.
I'd like to vote in the affirmative. I read it. It's comparable
you.
to Charles.
Please record Delegate Patterson's positive on it. We did
Yeah.
5 local bills. I don't know which ones you were here for.
You got 4? Okay.
Okay, that was the only one you missed. All right. Thank you for weighing in. I appreciate that. Anyone else for the good of the order? You're a great committee, man. Love working